Did you miss any episode of this great show? Don't worry, we've got you covered. This month, secrets unravel, betrayals come to light, and shocking twists shake the town to its core. From hidden pasts to dangerous alliances, every moment is packed with drama you won't believe. Stay tuned as we break down every episode in gripping detail. It's just like watching the show itself. And remember, support the channel by joining our membership, dropping a super thanks, or letting the ads play to help us keep bringing you these exciting recaps. Now, let's dive in. On the first day of April 2025, in the heart of Skemagrond, episode 158 unfolded with Brandon at his breaking point. His usually confident demeanor had crumbled under the weight of recent events, leaving him a shell of the man he once was. Slumped at the bar, fingers gripping a glass of whiskey he hadn't even touched, his thoughts spiraled into the void. Across town, Manny's anger still burned like an open wound. Dirk had done the unthinkable, and there was no chance of forgiveness, not now, not ever. The mere mention of his name was enough to make Manny's blood boil. Meanwhile, Amber's suspicions about Kirby grew stronger. There was something about him, something just under the surface that didn't sit right. Was he too smooth? Too calculated? She wasn't sure yet, but she would find out. And in the quiet of their shared space, Kevin and Gloria sat across from each other, the air between them thick with uncertainty. Their future was a question neither of them seemed ready to answer, yet the conversation loomed over them like an unspoken storm. By 2nd April, 2025, episode 159 found Kirby slipping further into the lives of the Law family, his presence becoming so natural that few questioned it. But Ruan wasn't fooled. He had spent too many nights lying awake, the weight of the past pressing down on him like a lead blanket. The deaths in the town haunted him, and no matter how much he tried to push them aside, they clawed their way back into his thoughts. He needed answers, needed to understand how so many lives had been lost, and why the town refused to speak of it. Meanwhile, Gloria stood in front of the mirror, her heart hammering in her chest. She had made up her mind. Tonight she would show Kevin the truth. No more hiding, no more pretending. If he was going to be part of her life, he needed to know everything. About Fabian, about the past, about the scars she had spent years trying to conceal. She took a deep breath, bracing herself for what was to come. On the 3rd of April 2025, in episode 160, a suffocating sense of dread settled over Lily and Erica as their worst fear materialized before their very eyes. It was no longer something they could ignore or outrun. It was here, real and undeniable. Lily's hands trembled as she poured herself a glass of water, her mind racing with worst-case scenarios. How had this happened? Had they not done everything in their power to prevent it? Meanwhile, Dirk was learning the hard way that farming was far from the easy, picturesque life he had imagined. His muscles ached, his patience wore thin, and the land seemed determined to break him. He had always thought himself capable, but the reality of the work was a different beast altogether. Elsewhere, Manny's world was unraveling at an alarming pace. Every time he thought he had a grip on things, something else came crashing down, leaving him grasping at straws. And then there was Kirby, watching, listening, piecing together fragments of Ruan and Lily's past. There was something there, something worth uncovering, and he wasn't about to let it slip through his fingers. By 7th April 2025, as episode 161 unfolded, Lily felt the walls closing in around her. Lying to Amber had never been easy, but now the guilt was suffocating. Sitting across from Amber at the kitchen table, she forced a smile as she spun yet another tale about her father, each word like a stone sinking deeper into her stomach. But Amber wasn't a child anymore. Her eyes lingered a little too long, her silence stretched a little too thin. She was questioning things, and that terrified Lily. Meanwhile, JP was seething. Kevin's decision to stay in Cape Town was reckless, impulsive, and downright foolish in his eyes. "This city will chew you up and spit you out," he warned, his voice laced with frustration. But Kevin stood his ground, unwilling to be swayed. Elsewhere, Jasmine, Erica, and Patty were huddled together, whispering in urgent tones. The feud between Manny and Dirk had gone on long enough, and if they didn't step in soon, the damage might be irreversible. Their plan was risky, but it had to work. Neither man would agree to a truce on their own, so they would have to create a situation where neither had a choice. On the 8th of April 2025, episode 162 took a turn when Jasmine revealed a surprise that caught everyone off guard. It wasn't just unexpected, it was a game changer. Across town, Gloria bolted upright in bed, her body drenched in sweat. The nightmare had returned, vivid and unrelenting. Fabian's face loomed in the darkness of her mind, his presence as suffocating as it had been in reality. Kevin, still groggy from sleep, reached for her. "You're safe," he murmured, but the words felt hollow. He could see it in her eyes, she wasn't safe, not from the ghosts of her past. Meanwhile, Kirby's carefully crafted plan took another step forward. With a perfectly wrapped box in hand, he handed Amber a birthday gift that sent a chill down Lily's spine. A DNA ancestry test. It was meant to be an innocent gesture, but Lily knew better. If Amber took that test, the carefully constructed web of lies she had spent years maintaining would come crashing down. By the 9th of April 2025, in episode 163, Kevin found himself drowning in the realities of his life with Gloria. Love wasn't the problem, it never had been. But the day-to-day strain of their relationship was beginning to take its toll. The weight of her past, the unpredictability of her moods, it was all pressing down on him, suffocating and relentless. Meanwhile, Kirby was playing the long game. Every move was calculated, every word chosen with precision. His plan was unfolding perfectly, and soon, Amber would be exactly where he wanted her. Across town, Dirk sat alone, staring at the decision he had just made. It wasn't a simple choice, it was a turning point. And whether he realized it or not, the ripples of his actions were about to crash into Manny and Tilly's lives in ways none of them could predict. On the 10th of April 2025, episode 164 saw tensions reach a breaking point. JP was furious, his patience with Kevin's irresponsibility running dangerously thin. "You think life waits for people who are late?" he snapped, his frustration spilling over. Kevin, though defensive, knew he had messed up, but things were bigger than one missed meeting. Meanwhile, Lily was in full-blown panic mode. Amber's interest in the DNA test hadn't faded, and the more she tried to steer her away from it, the more determined Amber became. "It's just for fun," Amber had said, but Lily knew better. Nothing about this was fun. This was dangerous. Elsewhere, Jasmine's attempt to do something meaningful for Hendrik was abruptly shut down before it could even begin. It was as if every effort to bridge the gaps between them was met with an invisible wall, unyielding and impenetrable. By the 14th of April 2025, episode 165 saw Lily spiraling under the weight of her own lies. She had convinced herself she was protecting Amber, but was she really? The more she tried to justify it, the more the guilt ate away at her. Meanwhile, Amber sat alone, tracing her fingers over an old photo, wishing she had something, anything of her father's. The ache of not knowing him had always been there, but lately, it had grown sharper. At the same time, Kevin was weighing his own future as Tasneem approached him with news about a possible job. The opportunity was tempting, but it came with complications, ones that JP made abundantly clear when he issued Kevin an ultimatum. "You need to decide," JP said, his tone firm. "Because this halfway in, halfway out thing, it's not working." On 15th April 2025, episode 166 sent shockwaves through Amber's world. The DNA ancestry results were in, and they were nothing short of earth-shattering. Her entire sense of identity had been flipped upside down, leaving her reeling. She had always known something was off, but this was more than she could have ever prepared for. Meanwhile, Gloria extended an unexpected olive branch. offering to arrange a meeting between Jamal and Kevin. It was a risky move, but one she believed was necessary. Elsewhere, Tilly was treading on dangerous ground. In a moment of absent-mindedness, she nearly let slip a secret that had been buried for far too long: the truth about what really happened to Willem. By the 16th of April 2025, in episode 167, Junior made a discovery so shocking that he had no choice but to bring it straight to JP. The information was too big, too dangerous to sit on. Meanwhile, Kevin found himself standing at a crossroads, faced with a decision that could alter the course of his life forever. The weight of it pressed down on him, suffocating and inescapable. Across town, Amber was a storm of emotions: anger, confusion, disbelief. The truth was out, but instead of clarity, all she felt was chaos. On the 17th April 2025, episode 168 saw Lily desperately searching for Amber, hoping to mend what had been broken. But some wounds ran too deep, and she wasn't sure if this one could be repaired. Meanwhile, Kevin's first day in Cape Town took an unexpected turn when he was met with a surprise he never saw coming. And somewhere, on the outskirts of town, Tilly and Dirk raised their binoculars to their eyes, their expressions shifting from curiosity to sheer horror. What they saw was not just unsettling, it was deeply, deeply troubling. By the time 21st April 2025 arrived, episode 169 had Ruan consumed by a single mission: uncovering Lily's secret. He had always sensed there was more to her story than she let on, but now, his suspicions were turning into certainty. Late at night, he combed through old documents and searched for missing links, piecing together fragments of truth that had been buried for too long. Meanwhile, Dirk, never one to sit idly by, decided it was time to take action. He had spent enough time watching from the sidelines, and now he was determined to set things in motion, though he had no idea of the consequences waiting for him. Elsewhere, Junior stood at a grave, his heart pounding as questions swirled in his mind. He needed answers, but the more he asked, the more doors seemed to slam shut in his face. At the same time, Kirby was making moves of his own. A mysterious phone call left him with a sly smirk on his face. Whatever he was planning, it was only just beginning. On the 22nd of April 2025, episode 170 unraveled a tangled web of secrets as Ruan's relentless pursuit of the truth led him straight to Cape Town, tracking Kirby's car like a hunter closing in on its prey. He had a gut feeling that Kirby wasn't who he claimed to be, and he was done ignoring it. Meanwhile, Tilly, usually steady and composed, was rattled after visiting Willem's grave. Something about it didn't sit right with her, an unease that clawed at the back of her mind. Had she missed something all this time? Elsewhere, Jasmine sat frozen, her phone screen glowing with a message from Amber. The words sent a chill down her spine. She wasted no time. Within moments, she was confronting Lily, demanding answers. The tension crackled in the air between them, their voices rising as years of buried emotions erupted all at once. By 23rd April 2025, in episode 171, Lily had no choice but to face the inevitable. With her back against the wall, she finally let the truth spill out. Everything about Abel, the past, the lies, the cover-ups. The weight of it all came crashing down, and the air in the room felt heavy with betrayal. Jasmine's eyes darkened as she took it all in, her own wounds from the past ripping open anew. At the same time, across town, Manny stumbled upon something that sent an icy shock down his spine. It was small, insignificant to the untrained eye, but to him, it was everything. As he processed what he had found, his mind raced with the implications. Meanwhile, Dirk and Tilly had no idea that the same discovery was about to shake their world too. On 24th April 2025, episode 172 saw Lily spiraling into desperation. She had to find Amber before it was too late. Every second that ticked by felt like sand slipping through her fingers, and panic clawed at her chest. Meanwhile, across town, JP and Jasmine found themselves on opposite sides of a brewing storm. The tension between them had been simmering for weeks, but now, it was reaching its breaking point. Elsewhere, Dirk's face darkened as he overheard murmurs about Junior's suspicions. If Junior was asking questions, that meant he was getting closer to answers. Answers that could rip everything apart. And as if drawn by fate, Junior turned to Ruon, enlisting his help in digging deeper. Together, they were about to unearth something no one was prepared for. By 28th April, 2025, episode 173, JP and Jasmine found themselves in the unthinkable position of trying to process what Abel had done. The revelation had shattered every illusion they had held onto, leaving only raw, painful truth in its wake. Meanwhile, Junior was relentless. He had a theory about the grave, and he wasn't backing down. Ruon, though hesitant at first, was now fully on board, ready to help uncover what had been hidden for far too long. Across town, Kirby moved forward with his plan, tightening his grip on Amber's mind. She didn't even realize what was happening, how slowly, methodically, she was being pulled into his orbit. On 29th April 2025, episode 174 saw Dirk and Tilly sitting in uneasy silence, their worry growing by the minute. They knew something wasn't right, but saying it out loud made it real. Meanwhile, Lily was barely holding herself together. Amber was slipping further from her reach, and every attempt to bring her back only seemed to push her away faster. Across town, Kevin struggled with the reality of settling into Gloria's house. It wasn't the space, it was the atmosphere. Something felt off. And in the midst of it all, Gloria's heart sank when she realized her promise ring was gone. It wasn't just any ring, it was a symbol of something sacred, and now it was missing. By 30th April 2025, episode 175 unraveled the final threads of the tangled web. Lily, Erica, and Rhaegal sat in hushed urgency, dissecting the truth about Kirby's false identity. The pieces of the puzzle were finally falling into place, but was it too late? Meanwhile, Gloria's frantic search for her promise ring bordered on obsession. She tore through drawers, overturned furniture, her desperation mounting with every passing second. And at the center of it all, Amber, oblivious to the storm brewing around her, found herself face to face with the big boss. A shadowy figure, a looming presence. This was the moment everything changed. And that's a wrap on this month's explosive episodes of Skemagrond. If you enjoyed the drama, the twists, and the suspense, make sure to subscribe and join the channel membership to stay ahead of the game. Your support helps keep these breakdowns coming, so don't forget to hit the super thanks button or let those ads play for at least 30 seconds. It makes a huge difference. Let me know in the comments what you think will happen next, and I'll see you in the next video.